Shri Krishna Namaha. Hello, Maheshji. Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for having us over for this session, for giving us this opportunity. We are very grateful. Let me first introduce myself. My name is Divya. I have been reading books for as long as I can remember. I'm very passionate about reading, and I also write reviews on social media. I am more of a fiction reader, but as I grow older, I see myself gravitating towards non-fiction. And I think this is the first spiritual book that I'm reading, and I'm able to converse with the author like this, and I feel really grateful. And this is my husband, Shaswath.
Hi, Maheshji. My name is Shaswath Kamath. I work here as an IT professional. I have a completely different perspective of reading books. It's mostly technical, and it is since teenage years I've had opportunities to read few non-fictional books, and this is the first time I'm also dwelling into this kind of spiritual book to understand. So. That's all about it. I mean, today I'm really blessed to, enough to talk about these things, the problems and the solutions with you. So thank you. Thank you for giving us the opportunity.
He's a very solution-oriented person, so he's very happy to be here. So growing up, the Gita and the Upanishads, they have been something of an enigma, I'm sure, for all of us. So this book, it has strived and succeeded to make these teachings more relevant for an era of people who are comfortable enough to be curious, to argue, to question the pathways of wisdom that have been passed down to us by our ancestors. So it is concise, yet very profound. And it has often given me answers at the right time. Like, whenever I needed it, I found the answers within this book. So I do have a few follow-up questions, and today's session, it's going to be about this follow-up. And on top of that, there's going to be more follow-up questions. So we can get started.
Very nice. So first of all, Krishna's grace, I'm glad we got connected. I'm glad you both have expressed interest and you're taking this leap. I would say you are one of the selected few who have gone on to this path of spiritual inquiry. Not always at your age gets into this. I know the population is increasing in that regard, so that's a positive sign of individuals who are getting onto this path. But still, it is still a minority. Usually, spiritual inquiry is something that we think is to be done after a certain age. I have no idea how that even came about. And then some say it is after retirement. I don't know what that means also. Because personally, I really believe some of us are fortunate to get that journey started sooner through various triggers that kick in. Some go on that search on their own. And I'm glad that has kicked in within both of you, particularly as husband and wife. That is the impressive part, that both of you are supporting each other on this journey. So that's really, really, really something that you should commend yourself. And none of this happens without Krishna's grace. So to keep that in mind is critical, that yes, we are the vehicles to make it happen. But the energy that drives it is, of course, not something that you came up with. That was something that got embedded within you. So again, thank you. And thanks for taking time to go through the book and then having this follow-up. So I'll do my best to be, as you probably read in the book and saw in the book, I'll continue to be sincere about it. I'll continue to share the authentic meaning of what's in the Gita and the Upanishads. And yes, ask me any questions. I'll make sure I get you the right answer. And if I cannot, I'll share that as well.
Yes.
Thank you. So please proceed. And yes, let's get into it.
So the first question that I wanted to ask you is what motivated you to write this book? And like, what was your thought process when you started writing it?
I'm glad you started with that. For a long time, I felt that I was not being true to myself just based on how I've lived my own life. We commonly think that to get into a spiritual path or to be a pure spiritualist, and we'll define that in a minute, what that means. But to be a pure spiritualist, we always, I wouldn't say everyone has this, but at least I had this thought that for some reason, right from birth, you should have to be that purist. And in my case, that wasn't at all the experience. I mean, I was probably like anybody else, and I'm still like anybody else, but there was nothing that selectively said, well, I was right from birth doing this, I was having a certain discipline and any of that. I was going my own merry way with whatever life's challenges came through, trying to deal with that challenge on that particular day, and doing many things. But then came a point where I realized that actually none of that matters. That what you were in the past actually doesn't matter. What matters is, are you evolving from the present? Are you evolving from the present is what matters. And the awakening moment to me was when I decided that I'm not letting anybody define my past. My past is my past. I mean, nobody needs to label me or define me based on that. What is more important is how am I defining my present and how I evolve from here. That was a big awakening moment. And with that awakening moment, what came through is a couple of things. One, I stopped feeling guilty. I stopped thinking that somebody is in a unique situation on some high pedestal and they are the learned ones. And I'm not. That mindset I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the knowledge gained. I'm talking about the mindset. I stopped thinking that mindset shifted within me. And then the second thing that shifted within me is it really said, I need to go on a quest for what is true, what is real. So those two kicked in. One, I stopped thinking I'm inferior to someone. Second, it gave me the confidence that I should go on my own inquiry. Having said, through that mindset shift, what it allowed me to do is it allowed me to actually start respecting people with knowledge versus blindly believing them or worshipping them. It actually gave me a different perspective to them. So that again was a triggering point, because now it didn't matter who it is, because I could learn from anyone and I could respect them for what learning they bring. So a culmination of this is what kicked me on this spiritual journey. And through that journey, I also realized something very, very profound, that we confuse everything and we live two lives. Meaning, simple example, we think when we are at work or when we are in the outside world, there is a certain way of living. But we think when we go to a temple or when we are offering a prayer, there is a certain way of living. When I realized, for a long time, actually, I used to say, I play two roles, is what I used to say. I put two faces, rather, not two roles. I used to say I put two faces. I used to say that openly myself, that I put a face out there at work and I put a face when I'm in my own personal space or in my own private life. Then I realized many of us end up actually doing that as I went on to this journey. Simple example, like we feel that it's okay to lie in a different space. Could be at work where you're giving an excuse, where you're probably saying, and you then you label it saying it's a white lie. So I mean, we feel that it's okay to do that. And then when it comes to, let's say, if you're in a more religious setting or more in a temple-like setting or a prayer-like setting, then you are differentiating between that, which is okay. You still say a small white lie. You don't say a bigger white lie, if that is the case. And definitely, you probably won't say something that is hurtful to others because of the setting. Clearly, it's two lives. And I said, there's no need to live two lives. No need to live two lives. It can be only one life that you live through everywhere. Whether it doesn't matter. 24/7, you can live through one single life. So these type of thoughts, the inquiry on this path is what led me on that journey. And then came a point where once the clarity kicked into my brain, Krishna's grace, when that happened, it became very straightforward and simple. And I said, okay, now it's time to put all of this on paper. And thanks to a couple of individuals who encouraged me to do that. In fact, a couple of individuals were the trigger for doing this. They encouraged me to put everything on paper. They said, why don't you put all of this? And then I realized as I was writing this book that this probably will not be a very popular book with people who I mean, it's much easier to get a big audience if I'm doing a ritual, as an example, or if I'm doing a puja. It's much easier to get a huge audience, or if I'm running an organization that's doing that and promoting everything in that regard. But again, there, Krishna's grace, it kicked in me saying it doesn't matter. As long as one person reads this and feels connected, you know what, then I think I have achieved the purpose that I have been brought into this world, which is, you know what, I've had the opportunity to learn, understand the Gita and the Upanishads. I've been able to communicate that. And if one person at the end of the day transforms with that and feels they can relate, so be it. If thousands do it, so be it.
And
So-
when did this scenario happen? Like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, when you mentioned that, transformation happened, when was this?
I would say the journey kicked in much earlier. It all started with a book that my mother had given at one point, which I never read. It was about the three acharyas of the Eastern philosophy, of the Hindu philosophy. Not the philosophy, rather, of the Hindu religion. The three philosophies of the three acharyas, Shankara, Madhva, and Ramanuja. I never read that, but one fine day I ended up reading it. And through that, my journey started. So the journey kicked in a long time ago. But the realization and the clarity, I would say, came in probably 8 to 10 years ago. The real clarity, I mean. And the clarity, I like putting things in words, because to me, words carry meaning. The definitions carry meaning. So the clarity is, no longer did I start living in fear, but I became a person of faith. So faith versus fear. No longer did I become a victim, I became a victor. No longer was I using my brain to be a Velcro for negative things and Teflon for positive, but instead I balanced it. So to me, those words matter. They matter a lot because they define. No longer was I mixing religion, tradition, and divine or common language, God. No longer was I mixing the three. I was able to segregate each. So that clarity kicked in, I would say, 8 to 10 years ago. And it was superb. It was superb. And it is superb even today. It is superb even today. That can come across as a little bit unemotional to some folks, but actually it's not. It's not that I'm unemotional about it or I'm emotionless about it. Because once you get that clarity, things become a little bit bland, but the big difference is you start respecting more. You start respecting in everything.
So I'm assuming when you say you start respecting everything, it means that, when you talked about two lives, the personal, professional, going to the temple is different life, right? So how do you do that? Like when you go to the office, how do you
Be yourself throughout.
be yourself throughout? So in
Without
office,
putting on masks for
Yeah.
professional
So,
life and personal life.
when we go to the office, when we enter, I usually, like most of the people, hi, how are you? How was your weekend? That is the way you enter in the office. But that is a professional way. We don't ask each other, oh, okay, how was our weekend? Personally.
Because we experience it.
We experience. So how do you do that? Like, how do you maintain the consistency and balance when you go to the office and then you come back home?
It is the subtle shifts and incremental shifts. So let's stick with the example you gave. Now at work, as an example, if I ask somebody, I'm still working, right? So I still do that. I still pay my bills through that. That's the world we live in, which is needed. If I ask somebody, how are you at work, as an example, I have a genuine interest in asking that question, how are you? And I actually listen to the answer.
So you don't do it for the sake of it.
I don't do it for the sake of it. And that is a subtle shift. And if I cannot do it, then I don't ask that, how are you? So when I'm asking, how are you? And when I ask somebody, how are you feeling? I'm really, my intent and my authenticity in that question is truly there. And only I know that I'm authentic to it. I mean, nobody else needs to define me for that. I know that I'm authentic when I say, how are you? So that is a subtle shift, just on that simple example. That is that subtle shift.
Okay.
So moving on, like earlier you said, faith versus fear. So the beauty of Sanatana Dharma has always been in loving God as opposed to fearing Him. But most of us have been taught to be very serious about our approach, like more disciplined. So many times we have this post-shower routine, right? So we light a lamp, we chant or recite shlokas. Sometimes I have difficulty in focusing, when I'm doing that. Because I'm constantly thinking about what I have to do next through my day, because we are always in a rush. So I have to pull my focus back towards towards the deity that I'm praying to. So in that case, are my prayers being just mechanical or a mere formality? How can I break that barrier?
I was speaking with an individual. I don't know when he was working or what is, but somebody I don't know much, but I was just speaking to an individual who actually was uh, in the army, and he was on the battlefield in Iraq and Afghanistan. And then I was watching somebody that he had referred me some video about a CIA agent. Why am I bringing these two? I don't remember the exact metrics, but I think the CIA agent was sharing that what they focus upon is the next 30 seconds or the next minute. Again, I may be wrong in my metrics, but they have the longer term approach and plan, but their focus is on that next 30 seconds to a minute or whatever that time frame could be, whatever, because that's where they are focusing upon when they are in an international country trying to deal with everything. Same with this individual from the army who was in Iraq and Afghanistan. He was sharing with me, when they are on the battlefield, their perimeter is 100 feet. So they may have to go miles to fight, but their perimeter is 100 feet. and their focus is what's happening in my next 100 feet. The reason I'm bringing that example is, to your point, Divya, when you talk about I have other things to do, my focus deviates, then in that, with the pressure of time, you're thinking, am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? It could be pressure of thinking, or it could be the pressure of, am I even saying it correctly based on your learning? So from a time standpoint, if you were to now just break it and say, what if my next 30 seconds is all that matters when I'm standing here when offering my prayer? Forget about the next 3 hours of offering prayer, but what if I can just take this slice of 30 seconds? And can I be focused in that next 30 seconds? If you cannot do 30, can I be doing it in the next 15 seconds, let's say? Can I shut down everything for 15 seconds?
But then
So
how do you do that? So for example, you get up in the morning, right? 5 a.m., 6 a.m. And then the first thing what usually I think, or usually the engineers or people who are constantly working, the professionals, right? So the moment you get up in the morning, you're like, okay, last night at 4 o'clock, what code did I do? The next morning you get up and okay, I have to find the solution today. I have no time. I have to do it, right? So you get up at 6 o'clock, automatically it starts appearing that, yes, that's the solution. Maybe, this is the pathway, this is the route, maybe this is the way to find the solution. Then you go to the shower, you again think the same thing. Or maybe, wife has asked me to get the groceries while coming back, right? So that is the another aspect of it. The moment you step out and then you go to pray, it's just, I personally, and maybe many of us, we find it impossible to, just block for a moment.
100%. Give it 100%.
Give it 100%. We just pray because that's the routine which we have to follow. And that has been, even if you don't want to follow, you will still follow, right?
It has been ingrained.
Ingrained.
It is discipline.
Yes. And we have seen our parents doing that. Same thing, we are doing it. Now we are asking a lot of questions like why, right? But the moment you sit and you start praying, you focus on the deity or you focus on the God and things like that. But teeny tiny bit, there is still some voice. Make it quick. We have to reach office. Still, you sit for another 5 minutes, 10 minutes. You pray and then you leave, and again the process starts. That's the comfort zone.
We have stand up at 10.
Yeah, we have stand up at 10. The moment you go to the office, we have to be there. That kind of stuff. So how do you, like, personally, you have achieved like blocking that for the next 30 seconds? What training or maybe inner things you have to make sure?
How long did it take for you to get to that place?
So a discipline or abhyasa, as they say, has to be inculcated. I've been taking some help with my strength training over the last 6 weeks. My physical strength training, I mean. And my trainer, every time I go and start working with her, the first thing, before she asks me to do anything, the first thing she says is, pull your core inside, stand straight. Even before she makes me do anything. Repeatedly, she keeps telling me that. Pull your core, because you got to stand straight when you're doing something. When you're lifting any weight, you got to stand, you got to have your core inside. So she's reminding me every time. First 3-4 weeks, I was not able to do that. I used to slouch when I was standing, right? Usually I was like standing like this and then trying to lift the weight. And she's like, no, pull your core inside. But after 4th week or 5th week, now it's mentally coming into my own thought process. The moment I enter that gym, actually it's not a gym, it's a training facility. The moment I enter that training facility, I'm pulling my core inside.
Okay.
So abhyasa or discipline, that's nothing but abhyasa or discipline. So discipline plays one role. So that's number one. But the second thing that plays a big role, Shashwat, to your question is, I used to do this, by the way. I used to go to sleep with a lot of baggage in my head. And that baggage used to keep coming through my dreams as well.
Yes.
Because dreaming state is no different than the waking state, by the way. It's the same exact thing. There's a subtle difference. We can talk about it later as we go through the dialogue today. But that baggage used to be in my dreams. And in the morning, I used to wake up directly trying to attack that, whatever that was there. And in your case, as you said, the code that you were writing or something. The shift that I made there several years ago, this is a long time ago, is before I went to bed, things that are so critical that I need to address in the morning, I used to just make a note of it on a piece of paper before I go to bed. So in fact, one of the things you will see on my desk at home is a lot of sticky pads. Because I write down stuff and dump it on this paper from my brain. So when I go to bed, it doesn't mean I'm ignoring the criticality of it. No, it is critical for me, but I'm not carrying that baggage when I'm going to sleep. In the morning, then I'll come to you in the morning in a second. But point is, so when you're going to bed, you're dumping everything that you think is critical, that needs to be attended for tomorrow. You're putting it here. So that's a shift. That's a discipline shift that needs to happen. So and I don't write it on the phone, by the way. I put it here. Worst case, sometimes I do send an email to myself. I do that. I send an email. I don't put it in a notepad or in one of those notes or electronic notes. Actually, send an email to myself. And so if you open my email, you'll probably even today. So if I remember something during the day, if Renu is around, my wife, I'll immediately tell her, Renu, can you send me an email? I don't tell her text me. Because text again has that impulse of watching the phone at that moment and opening it and forgetting it. Whereas if it's an email, I don't open it till the next day. So you will see a bunch of emails in my email inbox with some petty things that I don't want to forget, right? Could be something that needs to happen a month from now, but I have an email sent so that next day when I get to my computer, I put it in the calendar. That way I'm not constantly remembering those petty things. So basically, I'm not filling my life with that small rocks.
And what do you think from this is from our side, like from the person who is actually praying to the God, and this is what is happening inside our mind, right? What do you think divine thinks of this? Like
coming,
yes.
Yeah, I'll come there in a second. It's a very good point you bring up. So number one, start cleaning up. I use this phrase, I think in the book also I've written it. I use this phrase called brain space. Brain space is limited.
Yes.
So it's the question of what are you filling your brain space with?
Yes.
And that impacts, remember, the fundamental criteria is no more two lives.
Yes.
So whether it is work, whether it is God, doesn't matter. It's the same life. So your brain space is limited. So whether it's prayer or whether it's attending a meeting, it's the same. So keep freeing up your brain space as much as you can. That's number one. But the second thing about prayer, sorry, Divya,
Decluttering.
decluttering your brain space, correct. The second thing, very important, and this is something that comes through, in my view, discipline and experiences. My prayers are actually done before I wake up.
Can you elaborate?
Before I get out of bed, I'm actually done with my set of prayers. Even before I've started my day, even before I've woken up from the bed, I've already said all my prayers that I need to say. It's all done. It's done. I've expressed gratitude to the individuals.
Okay.
I've said the prayers that I strongly believe in with the divine, that I believe in those prayers and the meaning of those, which I have understood and have practiced. So all those prayers are already said. Um, the individuals I need to that come into my thought every single day in the morning and night, those individuals are already there. I've expressed my gratitude. In the book, I've written a whole chapter on gratitude. I've expressed already my gratitude to them in the morning. And because I cannot cover every single individual, I've my expression of gratitude to the bigger universe has also happened in the morning. So, because since you asked me how do I do it, I have to give you the true answer. So even before I wake up in the morning, when I say wake up, before I get down of the bed,
Okay.
as soon as I get back from my dreaming state, deep sleep state into a waking state in the morning, my prayers, that is the first thing that already happens. And that takes a few minutes. It does take. Could be 5, 10, 15, depending on what it is that day. It takes that. So then I've already started my day in a whole different mode. So when I look at that sticky pad that I had written last night, where I had dumped some of the urgent things, I'm now grounded in a different mindset to even approach this. And that could be a piece of code. In your case, it could be a person I need to talk to. It could be a very important transaction in my life, right, that I need to attend to, but it's all grounded in that. Now, of course, then you get going with your day, and then you you take a shower and all of that, and you follow a 5-path discipline. Again, Panchakala Kriya is what I talk about, a 5-path discipline, where you take your bath and everything else. But here is where it links back to your question. Let's assume on a particular day, I was not able to shower early in the morning.
Correct.
Yeah.
No regret or guilt anymore. No regret or guilt that, oh, I haven't taken a shower, so I'm not praying God now. I'm not praying to the divine and all of that. No guilt. My prayers are already done.
Yeah.
Already done. So it takes us back to that fear and faith. It starts taking the fear out. It starts taking the guilt out. So now when you take your shower and now you are in front of a deity, if your day is relatively free, if your brain space is quite free now, you may decide to spend an hour. If you have too many other things going on, then you may decide to spend only 30 seconds in front of the deity. Both are okay.
Actually, that's about to be my next question, because you actually have inadvertently answered it, but I'll just pose it anyway. So, like in terms of maintaining this consistency, some days I wake up, I feel like I want to sing bhajans, like just sing bhajans. Some days I think I want to do japa. Some days I feel like I just want to talk to Krishna. That's it. I don't want to do anything else. Some days I want to chant. So would that still be consistency? So that is what I wanted to ask you.
There has to be a consistent set that you do each day. And in my case, that's before I wake up. That's always consistent. I may add to it or I take out of it, but that still happens. Anything else that you do is absolutely fine, and that doesn't have to be consistent. One day you could do japa, one day you could do chant bhajans, one day you may decide to recite the whole Vishnu Sahasranama, one day you may just decide to meditate for an hour, just sitting quiet by yourself. One day you may not be able to do it. One day you may have a flight to catch because you're traveling and you cannot spend more than 5 minutes or 10 seconds. But the minimal I encourage anybody to do at a minimal after you, in the morning, after you take bath, is just at least light the lamp. Even if it's one single lamp. And I don't believe in lighting multiple lamps and all of that. There's no reason for it. The reason you light only one lamp also, I mean, nowadays you have lights, so you could technically say, well, I turn on the light, that's fine. But that lamp gives you that attention span of that few seconds. So at least light that lamp. And then whatever you can based on your brain space and based on the time you have, do it. If you cannot do it, that's fine too. So, Shashwat's question. Sorry, Shashwat, go ahead. I was coming to what does.
Yeah, I think you are answering that. Please go ahead.
Very important to remember that the divine there, if you put the name Krishna to the divine, Krishna is not sitting, number one, he's not sitting somewhere. The first thing, it's not a he or a she. And it's not Krishna sitting somewhere looking at an inbox saying, did Shashwat offer prayers this morning to me?
Yeah.
Did he say the 5 shlokas that he was supposed to say? Did he say the 5 shlokas that he was supposed to say? Did he, you know what, when he said that shloka of Bhagavad Gita, was his pronunciation exactly the way it should be? Did he say the Mahaprana correctly in that Bhagavad Gita when he was saying that shloka? Or did he miss that? Krishna is not sitting there in front of a screen or an inbox watching all of this and correcting you and trying to think about all of that. Because at the end of the day, the whole point of the Gita is, you are responsible for your own actions and thoughts. There's no correction needed by anybody, particularly the divine. There's no correction from that happens. So to answer your question, is Krishna sitting there thinking about that? Absolutely not. Some of the greatest philosophers and some of the greatest learned people or enlightened people that we call were individuals who did not utter a word. They were just silent. They probably did not even know many slokas or anything like that. Some of the most enlightened people. But they were still very enlightened in their words and their thoughts and the way they express themselves. So yes, to answer your question, no, there's nobody there because you, by the way, that is why you light the lamp. You light the lamp because that lamp represents the divinity that's within you and outside of you. And that lamp itself is your judge.
Oh, okay.
By lighting that lamp, you essentially are saying, what is inside me is what's judging me. If any, that is my judge. What's outside me is the judge, and I'm representing all of that through that lamp. Because lamp represents light. Light represents complete killing of ignorance and knowledge. So that is why you say, with the knowledge I gain is how I will measure myself. And I will strive to keep gaining more and more knowledge, keep learning more and more.
So it's like a symbol of our conscience that we are lighting every day.
Absolutely. It is a symbol of our consciousness. It's our consciousness. It's that energy, that divine energy that you are actually lighting and representing right there in front of you. It's that symbol of consciousness. That is what it is. That's why if you see in some temples, many temples actually, even if the main temple door is closed, the lamp is still lit outside the temple door.
Yes.
Just because the temple door is closed doesn't mean the divine disappeared. Because divinity is always there, exists everywhere, in everything, in everyone. That's why that lamp is always lit. So yes, at a minimum, back to the question, at a minimum, the prayer should include lighting a lamp. And you should have better adopt a consistent pattern where your prayers are done even before you wake up. Then your very foundation you start. Think about it. You end your night, before you go to bed, doesn't matter what you have done before that. Before you close your eyes and say, I'm sleeping, have a consistent set of prayers. Before you say, I'm sleeping, have a consistent, and the month of the day doesn't matter. None of that matters. Divinity is 24/7. There's no holiday for divinity. There's no off days and good days, bad days for divinity. So before you sleep, before you close your, sorry, when I say before you sleep, what I mean is you close your eyes and you say your prayers. That's perfectly fine. What I meant is before you fall asleep, you say your prayers. So have that consistent pattern in the night. And when you wake up, have that consistent pattern. Now think about the beauty of that. You're ending the day with prayers. You're starting the day with prayers. Everything else is in between.
Yes. It's a good way of probably having a mental peace, like ending the day with a prayer and then getting up with the same prayer what you have ended with. I'll try my level best.
Definitely do it. We'll do it.
Do it for, again, don't keep big goals around this. Just back to that example that I was sharing about the next 100 feet, the next 30 seconds, right? Just
Yes.
look at it just for today.
Yes.
See, do it tonight. That's it.
Yes.
And forget whether you'll do it tomorrow night or not. Don't worry about it. Do it tonight.
So we'll move on to the next question. Yeah. So since COVID, since start of 2020, when the peak COVID happened, I've had, I've experienced, and also I've had few of my probably colleagues or general people, right, going through a lot of problems, like for example, declining health, maybe financial issues, and personal life, professional life. Professional life, like we have been right now, it's happening, like a lot of layoffs happening, right? And then a combination of these problems. Sometimes what happens is all of this comes together. I've seen like professional, financial, even in subsets. You can see back to back a person is suffering a lot. So how do you manage to put faith in God? How do you make it consistent effort to pray to the God, and then probably during lowest of the lows you ask, why me? Why am I having so many problems? Maybe personally, maybe professionally, and how my main intention of asking is how to maintain that sort of a faith in God that someday, like after maybe 1 year, maybe 2 year, maybe some timeline, God is going to help.
And can I add to this? So I have seen, or maybe even experienced this at some point in my own life, that when there are problems, I obviously sometimes I run to God. That in Kannada we say Sankata Bandaga Venkata Ramana. So that happens. Or I've also seen people who have lost complete faith. So or maybe their faith has wavered a lot. That I pray so much, and in spite of this, all this is happening to me. And obviously, maybe that is transactional, I don't know. But that is the sort of thought process that some people have. So, in such times of need, how do we remain consistent without going in either too extreme in either directions?
So let us go back to some very fundamental concepts, which is the core of spirituality. And this is where you will have to unlearn a lot of what you have learned. let's go back to some fundamental concepts and approaches. God, again, we'll keep using that common term God. God has nothing to do with your personal challenge, your financial challenge, whether there was a layoff, whether there was a reorg, whether there was any of this, whether COVID came, whether a person died, whether I had a knee surgery. God has nothing to do with any of that. This whole universe has a foundational energy that runs it. Very simple. And that energy is what you call God. Some give it a shape, give it a shape, some don't give it a shape. So your belief or faith is the next level of belief. So let's use faith. Your faith in a divine or a God has to be completely independent of the circumstances because it is fundamental to who you are. Because if it was not for the energy, how would you and I even be talking today?
Correct.
How would you even exist in this universe? There is some energy. When you plant a seed, there is some energy that makes the seed grow. So there is some energy that makes the seed die without growing. So our fundamental existence, and that is Om Tat Sat that we say, that fundamental Om, which is the fundamental energy, Tat, everything out there, it is Sat is the stability and the existence itself. That is independent of what happens in one's personal life or professional life or what happens in this universe. So the faith in a divine has to be completely independent of anything else that happens. Which is why there is nothing wrong with an atheist. An atheist or a theist, an Nastic versus an Astic, there's nothing wrong with both of them. An Astic doesn't become superior to an Astic. An atheist doesn't become superior to an atheist. In fact, there was some study done on how many Nobel Prize scientists are actually theists, and majority of them are atheists. But they've come up with amazing discoveries that have helped you and I in our daily life. That they are atheists. Nothing wrong. Because at a fundamental level, faith is independent of what happens. The difference is for that scientist who's an atheist, believes in that fundamental energy in a different way. They say, well, that fundamental energy is atoms, electrons, neutrons, and stuff. You say that fundamental energy is this deity called Krishna. So let's clear that up. Let's keep that concept very clear. If prayers help you reinforce your confidence and your belief and your faith in a fundamental energy, and if that fundamental energy is represented through a deity called Krishna, or if you're a Shiva Bhakt, it could be in Shiva, doesn't matter. If prayer and belief and faith help you reinforce that, that is why you would pray. Let's keep the concepts very clear. That is why you pray. Because it reinforces your faith in the characteristics of the divine, which is, let me be good, let me be compassionate, let me be helpful, let me be charitable. Because those are all, you have attributed that, correct? To the divine. You say divine is compassionate, divine is charitable. That's why you are expecting the divine to help you, by the way. You're expecting God to help you because you think God is the all potential, all potent.
Yes.
Yes. Especially before the interviews.
Before the interviews. Exactly. Exactly. Before the interviews, you need to make sure you pray and go inside. So, prayer, since prayer helps you reinforce those characteristics, you pray. It's not because prayer is supposed to help you get you your interview. Prayer is supposed to help you reinforce that, look, let me be compassionate, let me be helpful, let me be healthy, let me be do this. So that's independent of what happens in your professional or personal work. So that is fundamental, number one, as to why you even pray. Coming to what happens with the challenges that we go through, with the health challenges, with the work challenges, and all of that. It's two sides of the same coin. One day you're healthy, one day you're not. Krishna's role is not to keep you always healthy. Krishna's role is not to always keep you in a job. Krishna's role is to help reinforce your faith in what you believe in. That is why the Gita says, what you believe in is what you get. What you have faith in is what you achieve more. Precisely why a person whom you would call bad, who does bad things, continues to do bad things.
Correct.
Because their faith is in doing bad. Doesn't mean they always do bad. They will still have obstacles in doing bad, correct?
Yeah.
And their obstacle is a good person. For a bad person, a good person is an obstacle. For a
Yes.
good person, a bad person is an obstacle. So both have the same thing going on. Both have the same exact thing going on if you think about it. For a thief, the cop is a obstacle. For a cop, it's the other way. Somebody who creates nuisance is an obstacle. So both have the duality going on in that. So the whole purpose of, again, prayer is to reinforce your faith in what you believe in. And through that, by continuing to increase that faith, what happens is you aspire and you achieve that next job. You aspire and achieve that next interview, that next house, that next vehicle. As long as you remember that I aspired and I achieved that through Krishna's grace. Because that was the fundamental faith. If you don't believe in Krishna, if you believe in something else, through the grace of that, whoever that is. For some, it could just be their parents. I achieved all of this because of my mother's blessings, of my mother's grace. Could be as simple as it. Doesn't have to be Krishna. But that is the fundamental thing. So that now, let's expand on that. As you start trying to aspire and go in the pursuit of that next job or better health, you always want to be in a position of stability.
Correct.
Because one of the things you very importantly said was, you feel everything comes at the same time.
Yes.
Financial difficulty, health, everything comes at the same time. That's because one of these things makes you unstable in your life. The moment you are operating from a space of instability or instability, what happens is the next one also gets impacted. So it is very important, very, very important, no matter in which phase of life you are, to get to the closest, very important, again, words matter, definitions matter, to get to the closest space of stability. For a person who is struggling to even have a single meal, they may have only $1, and for them, McDonald's, that dollar meal at McDonald's is a place of stability. They need to get to the closest space of stability. For a person who can afford a McDonald's meal, they may say, you know what? No, I need to go to Whole Foods because I have enough money, because Whole Foods is stability for me. That organic meal is stability for me. So you always strive to get to the closest space of stability. Once you go to the closest space of stability, then you can operate better.
Then what should be your thought process? Like, now you have achieved. For example, your dream was to get into IIT, or maybe your dream was to come to study, pursue further, get a job, get best salary. Once you achieve that, then what should be your thought process for the faith? As you mentioned, like for the mother, for the divine gratefulness. How do you do that?
Again, faith has nothing to do whether you get IIT or whether you bought the next luxurious car. Your faith, your approach is always consistent. It has no linkage to it. When Krishna says don't be attached to the outcome in the Gita, that's exactly what it is. It's perfectly fine for you now that you have achieved a certain position in your career, as an example, to aspire for the next level. The issue is getting attached to that. That is what Krishna talks about.
Can you repeat that? What did you say?
Perfectly fine that once you get to a level in your career, as an example, wherever you are in your current level, perfectly fine for you to say, you know what, let me work hard to get that next promotion.
Yes.
Perfectly fine. That has nothing to do with your faith in Krishna and your prayers that you say every day. Whether you get the promotion or not has nothing to do with that. It's perfectly fine to say, let me work hard to get the next promotion. But the point being, because you're operating from a stable platform where you have that faith, that helps you achieve that next level. So when people say, I believed in God and I got that job, I believed in God and I got that whatever, I bought a house, my first home, it's because subconsciously what they have done, people particularly who have achieved it, I'm talking about the people who have achieved it, subconsciously what they have done is they have believed in the power of the divine and they have acted in that direction. When they have believed in the power of divine and acted in that direction, they have obtained it. Versus somebody who becomes desperate, does nothing but keep on going to the next divine, next God, next God, next God, next puja, next puja, next puja. Because they've become desperate. If you really are believing in the divine, then you won't be doing next puja, next puja, next puja. Whatever that one puja you're doing, you will believe in that. You'll believe in that. So that is the difference. That is the difference.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting way to put forward. A lot of new learnings for me as well. Because I've faced both. Like, we have also been through layoffs, got the new job, became very lucky, that finally I found something. And then as far as parents are concerned, I have been very lucky that I have such understanding parents, understanding wife. We have common goals, things like that. But we always, when we get very stable things in life, we think, okay, thank God. But the moment things go down to a different level, we think, why God? so, so yeah, this actually, the way you explained it makes sense. That's what, as you mentioned, the fundamental way of understanding needs to be addressed here, and it really cleared a lot of concepts for me.
Just remember one thing, anything has to be universal.
Yes.
If it's not universal, then it's not accurate.
Yeah.
So the thank God and the why God has to be universal. The same, it's the same God. Somebody was asking me this question the other day, and I shared a very personal story because I couldn't resist. Normally, I don't share this, but since I shared it with this other individual, I'll share it here as well. In my own life, in our family's own life, um, there was a time where we couldn't afford a one-time meal. It was the same Krishna even then. Today, I have and we have in our family more than what we can eat. It's the same Krishna even now. So the difference, though, which should have kicked in my mind, and thankfully Krishna's grace, it's kicked in now. It was not when I was a kid. Was it should have been thank God even then, thank God even now.
Yes.
Because if it was not for the thank God at that time, I would not be in a position here where I have more than I can eat and I have more than what I can. I mean, I have more that I can serve so many people today.
Yes. Absolutely.
If it was not thank God for then, we would not be having this discussion.
Yes.
So it should have been thank God even then, thank God even now. Unfortunately, we all evolve. Sorry, fortunately, we all evolve. Unfortunately, I was not evolved at that time. It was why God at that time. Versus it should have been thank God. That is why in the Gita it clearly is, it's always Ishwar Ichcha. It's always Bhagwan's Ichcha. It's always God's grace. But again, fundamental is keep faith separate, keep your prayers separate, but get to your closest space of a stable platform as quickly as possible.
I think did you find the answers that you were looking for?
Yeah. There are more questions.
Okay, so moving on, one of my favorite chapters from the book is where you say we can relate to God, divine, maybe as a parent, as a friend, or as a lover. So my question to you is, does divine respond? Is it okay to keep such expectations, and how do we build that relationship with the divine? And how do we know if this is even the correct
Yes.
approach?
I am enjoying this because you have, I mean, the questions are flowing in such a nice way. Because one question, one point probably that I did not touch upon, which now with your question, now you have actually made me touch upon that is, then is it wrong to ask the divine for something?
Yes.
If the divine is a separate track, if the fundamental energy is a separate track, and that's not linked to my job, my career, my health, my wife, my husband, right? Then, or my children, then is it fine to ask the divine? Because isn't that transactional?
Yes.
Answer is yes, it is fine to ask the divine, provided, back to what Divya was saying in that chapter. If you place the divine on a pedestal somewhere, then it is wrong to ask. If you think God is somewhere out there separate, sitting on a golden throne somewhere, then you're essentially insulting that God. Because you're saying God knows everything. You say God is all compassionate. You say God is all omnipotent. You say God is all kind. Then why do you need to ask God for anything?
Yes.
God knows everything. So why do you ask? But no, it is okay to ask if you don't put God in that role, but you put God in a different role. You say, like, if you think about a child going to a parent and asking for something. So if you think God is your loving father, God is your loving mother, why wouldn't you ask your loving father or your loving mother? Absolutely ask. Would you not ask, Divya, would you not ask your dad for something? You would absolutely ask. But then as you grow up, you would also remember you won't blindly ask your dad for everything. You will say, you know what, before I approach my dad, let me make sure I do my duty. And then you will ask dad. Whereas when you're a kid, you won't have that filter. You'll just ask dad for everything and anything. So part of our spiritual journey is we do our duty and you ask your dad. Same way in your real world, you ask your dad after you do your duty. You won't blindly go and ask your dad for something. So absolutely okay to ask the divine in a role of your loving father or a loving mother. Absolutely can ask the divine in the role of a loving wife or a loving husband. Absolutely ask for the same way you would ask your loving wife. Ask the divine. Same way, Divya, you would ask Shashwat for something, ask the divine. Absolutely ask the divine as a loving child where you are the parent. Where you are the parent. And Krishna is your child. Your father not ask you to do something?
True.
The father evolves over in their life, right? And they will not ask random stuff of you. They will ask some very specific stuff of you. Because they have that confidence, I can ask Divya to do this. So absolutely ask the divine as a loving child. Absolutely ask the divine as a friend. Fight with the divine. Fight with the divine same way you would fight with your husband or wife, right? Both of you fight sometimes. Fight with the divine that way. Challenge the divine. Why are you not doing this for me? So when you say why God, Shashwat, earlier, it's not why God, why Krishna, you are my friend. How could you do this to me? But Krishna, you're sitting somewhere on the throne. How could you do that to me? No. The reason this is important is because that establishes your relationship with divine. What is your relationship with the divine? And the divine sometimes is your friend, sometimes is your lover, sometimes is your parent, sometimes is your child.
But then what is the point of this exercise? Like just before this, there was a question where you said that, divine will not think of you as, you need a job or something, like your materialistic aspect. But in our case, we are supposed to ask that, as a friend, how could you do this to me? Why I was not able to achieve, or why am I able to achieve so and so thing, but what about my personal stuff? And the ask never ends. Like, professionally, if you're successful, something happens in the personal life. If something happens with the personal, if everything is fine with the personal, you have something in professional. If everything is fine, then you start to question, oh, everything is fine, what next? Is there going to be something, So do you think that, don't you think that it just contradicts the thought process? Like if the divine is not able to, doesn't care, or doesn't not care, it's a very harsh word, but doesn't have some sort of a measurement metric. Okay, so and so good thing has happened. Now it's bad thing. Let's see let's test the devotee or maybe the individual. So don't you think that that's contradictory?
Also, if I may add to this, once again, like I want to ask, if we are asking the divine of something, like, in looking at the divine as a parent and asking for something, is it okay to keep that expectation? Like,
Yeah.
if there, or is there like a way to keep that expectation, if I'm making sense.
Yeah, no, it does make sense what you asked. So, very good question, because I think I'll just break it into three components. The first component of what Shashwat you were saying is, does it not negate what we discussed for the last 10 minutes, where the divine track is separate? It's a separate track. Divinity has nothing to do whether you get a job or all of that, correct?
Yes.
Doesn't it negate that? Yes and no. I'll tell you why. We are embodied beings. We are in this human life. And not everyone is enlightened to the point where we're absolutely clear that the divine has nothing to do with all of this. You'll get there. On the spiritual journey, you will get there. But till such time, what you will do is, if you, and by the way, it's not mutually exclusive. If you are steadfast and very committed in your approach to divinity, in your approach, the way you say your prayers, without linking it to any transaction. Very important. When you're saying your prayers, you're not linking it to any transaction. If you're super clear and you're doing that, and then you still have a transaction that you need to satisfy, get me my next job, to pose that in that roles that we said, asking a father, asking a lover, asking a friend, asking a child, what you will see, and I'm saying this through my own experience, what you will see is over time, that will reduce. That will reduce. Over time, it will reduce. Initially, your effort has to be, how do I keep that separate? And if I do need to ask, how do I make sure I ask the divine in one of those four roles, but keep my prayers separate? Over time, you will see that asking reduces. In fact, it becomes null. It becomes zero. You will not ask at one point. So that takes time, but you will get there. If you start practicing and going in that path, then it won't negate it when you get to that point. But till such time, we are humans. We need to unlearn everything we have learned.
Yes.
Right? Because around you, you have all these stotras and bhajans also that keep saying God is the savior, God does this, God does that, right? So you have all that, you have to unlearn all of that, or you have to just respect for the singer there and the lyrics there, but not really get too much attached to it. You will learn that, and it takes time. So it won't negate in that direction. When you get to that, it won't negate in that regard. The second aspect of that is, as you again keep going and you keep this in your mind, that at the end of the day, the outcome happens for multiple reasons and you don't control the outcome. That also reinforces that I am in a very good spot today. To your point, everything is going so great. Will something happen tomorrow? Everything is going great. Will something happen tomorrow?
Yeah.
Who knows? Because that what will happen tomorrow is not in your control. It's a confluence of so many things. But here is what you will see, the beauty of this, by the way. And I'm seeing this in my own life. I've seen it in so many lives. For people who are clear and who have clarity in these paths, they will realize that it's only good that keeps on happening. Because not that bad doesn't happen. When you say good or bad, depends on how you define good or bad, right? There will be blips in their life. But when the blip happens, they'll have the strength to overcome it easily. So they will feel everything is good all the time. Because that blip is so small compared to the strength they have that they're able to overcome it. There's no bad at all in that regard. So yes, to answer your question, no. If things are going good, it will continue to go good. It will continue to be nice as long as you have that prayer track which is disconnected from the outcome track. Outcome track meaning, did I get my next job? Do I get this? Disconnected. And if you really still need to ask one of those four roles of the divine. Don't put the divine on a pedestal. Our biggest flaw is we put divine on a pedestal. That is the biggest flaw we make. Because then we are not connected to the divine. We are always separating ourselves from the divine.
Yes.
You don't separate from your father. You actually say, I am because of my father. Otherwise, you wouldn't even be here.
Correct.
So in the context of Sanatana Dharma, one of the most talked about topics and maybe the most misunderstood topics is that of karma. So there are times when we see people who are kind and virtuous and who have contributed a lot to society. They end up suffering quite a bit, and then someone says, "Oh, he must have accumulated bad karma in his past birth." So I know like this is a vast topic, but could you just give us a brief explanation of karma here?
You're absolutely right. Karma is the most misunderstood topic. And in fact, the sad part about karma is it is used as a crutch. It is used as a crutch. If things go well, you say, person has good karma. The person was born with a golden spoon. If things go bad, karma. And the sayings, the way we have been taught also kind of reinforces that. You would have heard this phrase, adrishta. Adrishta is really good. Adrishta is what is not drishta, what is not seen. What is not seen is adrishta, so your adrishta is good. Like even without you knowing it, without you even putting an effort, you have received it. So the best way to understand karma is you realize that every moment there's multiple actors in this universe. Every single moment. There's many actors in this universe. By that I mean many things happening in this universe. Those many actors are your friends, the people you interact with, people you don't know, people you know, doesn't matter. Things that you don't know, things you know, and all of that. Each individual and entity is doing some action. Even inaction is action. Each individual, somebody is just sitting on a couch. That is inaction, but even that is an action. So at any given moment, any given instance, there's this thousands and millions and billions of activity happening in this universe. They all crisscross. They all crisscross. Remember what we discussed earlier. What you believe in and where you put your faith keeps expanding. Keeps expanding. So if you think good about people, if you're not judgmental about individuals, if you always associate yourself with folks that are of a like-minded thinking, that reinforces, that becomes better, that becomes better. It keeps becoming bigger and bigger and bigger. When that happens, and when the crisscrossing happens now, right? Remember, in the universe, there's so many actions that keep happening. When the crisscrossing happens, the chances of you crisscrossing with that type of an activity, that type of a person is a lot more. That is what that ends up becoming your karma. Now think about when the crisscrossing is happening, when you're cutting across with people who have undesirable effects on you for whatever reason, not your fault. Some person is doing that action. What can you do? When that crisscrossing happens with that type of an energy, let's call it a negative energy for a minute. When that type of a negative energy cuts across you, because you are connecting with people, with like-minded people like yours, with good intentions, good connections and everything, this energy will end up cutting that energy. As a result, you will overshadow that negative energy. So you cannot avoid that energy, that negative energy coming at you, because that's not your problem. It's just how the universe is, with so many entities, so many billions and millions of things happening. What you could do is make sure you're developing the resilience and the strength along with the people you're associating, along with the thoughts you are inducing, to overcome that. That is karma, which is why some things are completely unavoidable. So why do bad things happen to good people? That exact reason. It's not because the person was good, bad. Of course, because the person was good, there were many good things happening to that person. But then there are times when it happens. Simple example with what happens with our body. Why did a very healthy person get cancer? You cannot avoid the fact that you inherited a genetic profile from your parents. You did everything possible to keep your body healthy. You cannot avoid the fact that you had a gene that came through your ancestors. That cell mutated itself. No matter what you do, it resulted in a cancer. That has nothing to do with karma. Now, can you say, well, it was karma that I was born in an ancestor with a lineage of an ancestor who had that? Of course, if you want to label it that way, go ahead and label it. I mean, yeah, you could call that karma. Because my grandfather had blood pressure, so I got blood pressure. Can you call it karma? Yeah, call it karma. Fine, that's okay. If that gives you satisfaction, call it karma. But the fact of the matter is, you were born in a family, in a physiological heritage, in a physiological bodily heritage, where your grandfather had blood pressure. So your chances of getting blood pressure, and on top of it, you ended up eating too much salt. So you ended up getting blood pressure sooner. So that is how karma gets through, and that is how karma impacts you. So to make it understandable to people, we break it into buckets. Prarabdha karma, you're born with some karma. Then you have sanchita karma. Then you have agami karma, the karma that you accumulate right now. So to make it more logical and understandable, we break it into buckets. But the fact of the matter is, this is, at the end of the day, it's this multitude, this spaghetti of actions by so many individuals that come your way. All you can do, goes back to a previous question, be firm in your faith and associate yourself with the right people, because they will ultimately come and help you with that, to overcome that.
Just a follow-up question. I'll go back to the same routine. You get up, you go to the office, you come back, and that's how most of the job situation or the people who are professional, they're facing it, right? How do we know that we are contributing to a good karma, or how do we know that we are contributing to a bad karma? It's just, you're just doing a job, right? And then you come back, you do your personal duties, that's it. But by the end of it, how will you be judged? Or may I say, how will that karma registration happen? Like whether it's good, this guy has behaved really well whole day, or whether he had an argument with a colleague or maybe wife, then it's a bad karma. Like how do we define that?
Accumulation.
Accumulation, yes.
So yeah, just because your audio is a little bit weak, let me summarize the question. I'm assuming you're able to hear me okay?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So let me summarize the question. You go about doing your daily job, your daily routine, and basically at the end of the day, how do you know if you really ended up contributing to good karma or did you accumulate some bad karma because of that?
Yes.
So here is the thing. Just take this example and you will probably get this point right away. Does a river ever stop flowing? Does a river think, why should I flow today?
No.
The river just flows.
Yeah.
The river just flows. You may put a dam in between the river. You may construct a dam, or there could be garbage that comes in the river. Does the river say, no, I'm not going to flow now because somebody constructed a dam or somebody put a pile of garbage they dumped in me, so I'm not going to flow? No, the river just flows. In fact, it will try to keep flowing around the garbage, pile of garbage. It will try to keep flowing there. The meaning here is you go about doing what you need to do based on the role you are playing at that moment. Based on the role you have at that moment of your life. At work, you are an employee doing a certain role. At home, you are playing a certain role. In a societal setting, you are playing a certain role. In a party, you are playing a certain role. Whatever your role is, you keep doing what that role requires you to do. Whether that accumulates towards good or bad karma is not your problem. Is not your problem. Because you are one of those billions of individuals, like I was describing earlier. And for a moment, put yourself as an image. Say there is Shaswath and there is another Shaswath out there performing his activity. Exactly that. You keep doing what you need to do. That Shaswath will keep doing what he needs to do. If that Shaswath is enlightened, that Shaswath will do the right things. If that Shaswath is not enlightened, unfortunately, he won't do the right things. And you being the enlightened Shaswath have no control on that. Have no control on that. So you keep doing what you need to do. You have absolutely no control about it. Whether it's bad karma, good karma is not your problem. Not your problem. You just keep flowing like the river flows. What outcome you will get to now, at that day, at the end of the day, whether you'll fight with your wife or whether you'll have a good time with your wife, it all depends on what she's done also that day. It's not just you. It also depends on what she's done. This is precisely why karma at the end of the day is a confluence of actions and events. You control and you end up doing what you can do. And try associating yourself with the right people, with the right actions. The outcome is the outcome, which goes back to the fundamental premise of the Gita. You can never predict the outcome. You can never predict the outcome. Think about it. Krishna, being the supreme, knew the outcome, correct?
Yes.
Why did Krishna have to make Arjuna go through the whole ordeal?
Yeah.
Because that is what the actions are of Duryodhana's action was that, Bhishma's action was that, Arjuna's action was that. Krishna knew everything, right? Krishna knew the outcome at the end of the day, being the supreme. But everyone had to go through it. Now, you can ask a deeper question. Did Krishna know the outcome? Krishna is very smart in the Gita. Krishna says that outcome is not your problem because all you have to do is your action. Said in another way, Krishna is saying, I don't care about your outcome. Krishna is saying in another way, I don't care about your outcome. I am imparting you the guidelines on which you should perform your action. Perform your actions, leave the outcome.